Underground, the Liberty Report.
Well, hey, everybody. Hello, America. Welcome to Moretti Underground, the Liberty Report. Today is Monday, May 18th, 2015. It's 8 o'clock p.m. on the East Coast, and we're reporting live from the studios of PRN Radio Network. That's the exclusive home of the Watchmen of America program, by the way. Hey, Watchmen. I'm Joanne Moretti, and my great co-host Scott Ferrarello is here with me, too, and we appreciate you tuning in. We'd like to thank you for that. Our chat rooms, both at Blog Talk Radio and right here at PRN Radio Network, are open for you. A few of our awesome colleagues, Lynn, AstroTurf, and Famous Anna, are in the chats putting links, articles, sources, and documents in there so you have them available to you. And thank you for that nice courtesy, my friends. Our colleagues are more than just people in the chat rooms, by the way. They're the best researchers, journalists, analysts, and friends I've ever met. So please say hi to them when you get over to the chats. You might even run into a couple of our other colleagues, too. Today we have a lot of news to share, and we'll be having some updates and important facts to share with you as well. We're going to be doing some live updates on this Hillary Clinton thing, too, that's going on. Man, there's all kinds of stuff breaking about her, but that's down the road a bit. Anyhow, before we begin, I have to first do a short disclaimer, and that's just to let everybody know that what's said on this show is my responsibility and not that of our gracious hosts or sponsors. The disclaimer goes like this. The comments made by hosts and or guest hosts or phone callers of the PRN Radio Network do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints, ideology, beliefs, or anything else of members of the Watchmen of America program or the Patriot Resistance website, whether it be past, present, and even future broadcasts. Also, this show is probably rated around PG-13, and we don't hardcore cuss, but once in a while we have a couple of quotes, and today we may have a audio to share with you that has a couple of cuss words in it. So, you know your kids, and, might be a little over their heads, but, I'd say we're rated around PG-13. Anyhow, you figure it out. All right, now that's out of the way. Let me open up Scott's microphone here and give him a proper hello. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Scott Ferrarello. Hey, Scott.
Hey, how you doing, Joanne?
Hey, not too bad, my friend, not too bad. How was your weekend?
Oh, just lovely, as always.
It was F&D. That's fine and dandy,
yeah.
Folks. Yeah, mine was pretty hectic, too. Man, we got news all over the place today. You got the Supreme Court ruled on a few things. There's all kinds of Benghazi and then Hillary emails breaking. Was a biker gang fight out there in Texas. We got ISIS running around all over the place. The junior varsity team has now graduated and they made the quarterfinals. They took over Ramadi. So we're going to get to a bunch of news and some things that we got to talk about. Anything you want to bring up before we begin?
Go ahead.
All right, well, let's talk about the Supreme Court first. Today a couple of rulings came out. The first one was on Maryland's double taxing. I didn't even know. Up in Maryland, say you live in Maryland and you work half the time in Virginia, Virginia taxes you for the money you made in their state, and Maryland taxes you for the money you not only made in Maryland, but the money you made in Virginia, too. So the Supreme Court said that was double taxation, and you can only tax the money that was made in your own state. Maryland's going to lose a lot of money because they do have people working in D.C. and working. Even if you live in Virginia and you work in Maryland, you still get taxed on your whole income. So now that's been found illegal, I don't know if they owe a whole bunch of people rebates or whatever, but I think it was a good decision by the Supreme Court. It says Maryland has been illegally double taxing residents who pay income tax to other states. The Washington Post put this out. It says a divided Supreme Court ruled Monday that Maryland's income tax law is unconstitutional because it does not provide a full tax credit to residents for income tax paid outside the state, a ruling likely to cost Maryland counties and localities across the country millions of dollars in revenue. So it says the court voted 5-4 to affirm 2013 Maryland Court of Appeals ruling that the state's practice of withholding a credit on the county segment. I wonder who the four were. I know that the guys all voted that it was illegal, and Sotomayor, so it tells you the rest of them who think it's okay to double tax you. That's, I mean, I'm glad the ruling come out this way, but I think it should have been unanimous. Another ruling
look at
that
cars and stuff. If you try to sell a car, you pay sales tax the first time you buy it, and then you pay the sales tax every time you resell it. How about, you know what? The sales tax was already paid on the car the first time it was bought. That should be it. But, whenever they get a chance to double or triple gouge you, they're going to do it, usually.
Yeah, they got this excise tax thing, too, that you pay every year up in states like Massachusetts. They don't have it down here in Florida. But every year you are taxed just for owning the car. So I don't know how legal that is. But you pay a sales tax, and then you pay an excise tax every year.
Aren't they doing a tax you by the mile thing in Utah or Wyoming or somewhere?
Yeah, California wants to try that, too, tax by the mile.
Yeah, see, so that way it doesn't even matter if you buy an economy car to save on gasoline, because they're still going to screw you on the mileage.
Right. Even if you buy a little scooter that you fill it up with $3, if you go 60 miles, you're going to have to pay 60 miles worth of taxes. I mean, that's like renting a U-Haul truck every time you go out. You have to pay for mileage, too. I don't know if that's legal. I think that should be challenged. The Supreme Court also ruled on guns. There was this Border Patrol agent, and he owned a whole bunch of guns. Well, he decided to be a drug dealer, too. He got found guilty of dealing drugs, actually the distribution of marijuana. So now he's a felon. They didn't want to give him his guns back. He said, I want to sell those guns. That's my property, and although I cannot legally own them, I should at least be able to sell them, seeing that I am their rightful owner. I paid cash money for them. So why can't I sell my guns? That gets them out of my hands. I profit from the sale because it was my property. So the Supreme Court agreed with him and said that, yes, they are his guns, and they couldn't put the guns into the guy's hand. His name is Robert Rosier. But a friend of his had agreed to buy the guns. So he wanted to sell the guns to his friend, and the cops weren't going to let him. So the Supreme Court said, yes, that is his property, and you cannot confiscate it. Even though he can't be in possession of that property, he has every right to sell it. So I think that was a good ruling, too.
I'm surprised.
Now, they haven't... No, I'm surprised, too, that they would even consider returning a gun, but they had to. They have to interpret the law according to the constitutionality of the facts presented. And the facts presented, well, that's what it's supposed to be anyhow.
If that was true, we wouldn't have Obamacare, I mean, when they can force you by gunpoint to buy a product that they sell, how constitutional is that? I mean, they might as well just come out and say, everybody's going to buy a Toyota next year, or the IRS is going to charge you $5,000. Yeah,
well, they reframed it. They reframed it, and they didn't call it a penalty. They called it a tax. So that's how they got around that. But that really is forced servitude, just like the baking the cake. I think that they should have rethunk that, because that is forcing somebody to perform a service, even if you're getting compensated for it. You're forcing somebody to act against their wishes to provide a service to someone else. That is the definition of slavery.
Right. And if if the Supreme Court was still ruling on constitutionality, they would have said, we're sorry, but the First Amendment protects religious freedom. They can choose not to sell to someone that goes against their religious beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
But see, that's only for Christians. Anybody else can do it.
Yeah, well, it upsets Muslims. Being gay upsets Muslims. So
do you think they're going to have to bake a cake for a gay wedding? No.
I don't think anybody sued them yet.
No, they never send in ambush reporters in there to ask them. Because if they did, they'd tell them to get out.
Yeah, well, Steve Crowder did try to get people at a Muslim bakery to bake him cake. As a matter of fact, he tried it at a few Muslim bakeries up in Dearborn. They all told him to hit the bricks, take a hike. He didn't sue them or anything, but he just wanted to highlight. They all said, "No, go across the street. Maybe they'll do it for you. We can't do that." They flatly refused. They didn't even give him a reason. Yeah. So, but I noticed that they never go after the Muslims for any of this. It's always against the Christians. Let me tell you something, gay people. The Christians are the least of your problems. They're not going to behead you. They don't have to agree with what you do or what you don't do, but they're still not going to behead you. I wouldn't be so comfortable with, the Muslims on that respect, that's for sure. The Supreme Court did not rule yet on gay marriage. I have no idea how that's going to go, but I really do think one thing, and it's not anything to do with being gay, it's everything to do with being right with the Constitution. Ruth Bader Ginsburg and Elena Kagan have both performed gay ceremonies in states where it was legal. So I think that they should recuse themselves from deciding on this federal case if they have already engaged in the practice. Or they
they're
should
going to rule in favor.
Leave it up to the states. Or they should leave it up to the states.
They will rule in favor. You can bet money on it. That's a global agenda goal. They also want everybody to be asexual, so you don't even know what gender somebody is. Outlawing terms like male and female and mother and father. I mean, how insane is that?
That is insane. Look, no matter what you do, you can even have gender reassignment surgery. It's still not going to change your chromosomes. If you have a Y chromosome, then you have a Y chromosome. That's it. And all the gender jumping in the world isn't going to change it. Mentally, maybe, but physically, absolutely not. You can't. I mean, it just can't be done unless you change somebody's whole DNA and chromosomes, which I'm sure they're working on.
Now transgendered or transsexual boys can join the Girl Scouts now. Isn't that awesome? Don't you love how everything liberal touches turns to crap?
Yeah, well, I think that since the beginning of man, we've had two genders, male and female. Even people who have problems with their own gender identity. I don't think that giving everybody a gender identity crisis is the cure. But that's just me. Hey, what do you think about this biker feud? I am really, really confused about it. I am seeing that there were three groups. Well, they said that there were 5 groups, but there were 3 main groups.
First it was 2, then it was 5. So, their story changed 5 minutes after they were into it. So right there, that sounds an alarm that something's not right.
Yes, that sounds the alarm for me, too. When they start changing the story 5 minutes into the story, it just doesn't sit well. But the group's names are the Cossacks, the Scimitar, 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 which is a Middle Eastern group, by the way. The Cossacks, they are a Ukrainian-Russian group. And then you have the Banditos. They are an outlaw group. They are one of the 1% groups. There's like 250 different chapters of the outlaws, and the Banditos happen to be one of them. They're biker gangs, but this just isn't sitting right with me. The cops knew there was a feud brewing. They knew that this place, Twin Peaks Restaurant, and I forget the name of the bar now. It'll come up here, but that's a biker bar, biker restaurant, and they knew that this feud was brewing for a while. Allegedly, they had cops not only infiltrate the gangs, but cops on scene too, waiting to see if something happened. They say that it started with a fist fight in the bathroom. It spilled out into the restaurant, and then by the time it spilled out into the street, in the parking lot, guns were drawn and people were shooting. I understand cops were shooting too. But there's people are saying, well, maybe it was part of Jade Helm, and maybe it was a false flag, and maybe it was this, maybe it was that. I don't know. I think that it would serve a purpose, you know. Although some of the bikers were Hispanic and black, they were predominantly white. Even Sally Cohn said, "Oh yeah." She went on and she said something about, like, at least, you know, they're not called thugs. Well, I heard a lot of people calling these bikers thugs, actually.
So did I.
But yeah, and you know, they said, well, you know, well, they weren't black, so nobody was calling them thugs. Yes, they were. Some of them were black, and they didn't all ride Harleys either. Some of them rode, well, kind of Harley-looking ones, like the Yamahas and stuff. There was a couple of sport bikes there in the groups. What I noticed most was that the guys with the Cossack colors, you know, the ones that were wearing the name Cossack.
Oh, with the scary cartoon on their jacket.
Yeah, but they didn't have very many tattoos. I know a bunch of bikers, and most of them have tattoos. Most of them are covered with tattoos. I only saw like 2 or 3 of them with the tattoos.
You know why?
You
know why? Most bikers nowadays are lawyers and doctors, and they have real jobs, and they just dress up on the weekends and pretend to be bikers. I mean, I haven't heard of a gang war biker-wise in 40 years. It's real funny that it happens right at the same time Obama and the DOJ are pushing for federalizing the police.
That's true.
You know, that's some good timing there. Plus, it happened in Dallas, you know. And it just, I don't know.
Yeah, well, there's a guy, he sounds kind of like a cop to me, but I'm not really sure. Let me play what he had to say, because he came out and said, no, this isn't a false flag, no, this isn't any type of jade helm. So let me play what he had to say, and it'll tell you.
There was a big incident that happened in Waco yesterday. And before it goes too far down the chain, I'm going to say my name and the things that I've done before. It's going to speak for itself. Lived in Waco for approximately 10 years, and I know one of the managers from Twin Peaks. I know lots of people from around town. As soon as this happened yesterday, we had lots of people watching to see what was going on. I will confirm this was a turf war that sat down several different clubs for some sort of public meeting that ended up going south. The police had SWAT there. They already knew that the meeting was going on, and when the shootout started, the police were engaging the people shooting immediately. Seems as if everybody dropped their weapons and were detained. There's been 192 people arrested. They were all taken to the convention center last night. I'm sure they were sorting through the mess. I want to put down any false flag rumors, jade helm rumors, or any racist, baiting, bullshit memes that are going out there. This wasn't Ferguson. This was Waco, fucking Texas. There were Hispanics that were arrested as well as white people, and I'm not sure if anything else is, or any other races of people. They were all humans that got into a fucking gang fight with knives, bats, chains, guns, and everything else at the intersection of Highway 6 and 35. The police put a very quick stop to it before families got injured, and ended up detaining almost 200 people because of the incident. They did not lock the city of Waco down. They ended up letting the public know about what was going on, and from the best of what I can tell, even hearing stories from people that were there firsthand, that the story coming out is exactly the way it's being perpetrated by the media and by the police. I was confirming things like people going to the convention center before it was released to the media by the police. So if I hear anything from the alternative news about false flags or jade helm or anything else like that today, many of you know I have contacts with many of these alternative news sources, and I'm going to tell you guys right now that I've confirmed pretty much everything that's being said. It sounds like the Waco police did a pretty good job of handling the situation and protecting families and local restaurants, and now they're involved in the shooting, and very possibly there's reprisal things that are going to happen. I pray everybody keeps safe in Waco, Texas, and that this thing actually somehow works itself out.
That's enough. You guys get the gist of it. Now, there's a couple of things I noticed about this audio. First of all, the guy himself. I think he's a cop. He also says that there might be reprisals against the cops because they were involved in the shooting, too. So that puts it out there that now the cops are in danger and they have to make a whole operation of this. Like I said, it could be legit or it might be not legit. Either way.
Well, he dropped 2 F-bombs there. And this is Waco, Texas. Let's not forget. This is a place where Janet Reno and the police and all them burned a bunch of children alive to death when they could have just easily arrested David Koresh when he was in town getting supplies at the same time every week. So I don't trust him. Sorry.
Well, then this creep Sally Cohn says a Muslim only has to attack one person to be a terrorist. A black man just has to be killed by cops to be a thug. But 9 dead, biker gang?
Yeah, hey.
Seems like everybody's got their...
Why didn't the mayor come out and tell the police to stand down? Give them some killing room. Give them some killing zone space there. In case they wanted to burn some businesses down to the ground or loot all night long. Wow.
Yeah, no.
How many got arrested in Baltimore, by the way? The ones that Jay-Z and Beyonce bailed out?
Exactly. I heard that Jay-Z and Beyonce were bailing out the people who were arrested.
Well, yeah, his whole fan base is in prison or jail. Who's going to listen to their crap if they're all in jail,
Yeah, that's true.
Homeboy got to make some money.
You ain't kidding. That's actually coming up. We're going to talk about that. Anyhow, with this biker gang, keep your eyes open. Not sure what to make of it. I'm not sure if it's legit or not legit. And if the cops are in trouble, I think they got everything under control there. It was in it looks like the place is on the outskirts of a town. The closest thing that was anything of a metropolis was this big marketplace. It looked like a giant outdoor mall or a flea market type thing. That there were a lot of people there. So,
and don't forget, if they're white bikers mostly, then you can blame patriots, you can blame gun owners, you can blame NRA members, you can blame all sorts of groups that they've been conservatives, right? All these groups, they've just been dying to be able to blame, and so far they haven't been able to.
Yeah, I know. So far everybody's kept a lid on it, but now, if you get this type of uprising. Now, I remember back when the Hells Angels were fighting with the Red Emeralds and the Warlords were in on the fight.
40 years ago?
Yeah, it was 100 years ago. But
that's what I'm saying.
And the bikers that I know, you're absolutely right. Doctors, lawyers, businessmen, those things are not cheap. It costs the same or more for a decent Harley as it would for a new car.
Yeah,
so, and the maintenance of them and the care of them. This isn't this isn't back in the wild days.
So I just can't wait to see more information come out about this because we're gonna find out some things that the mainstream media, of course, won't investigate or report on.
Mhm.
The cops are always the saints, and the other people are always the evil ones, and I just don't buy it anymore. Especially in Waco, Texas. And
you know what didn't make the news? 2 people were dead and 47 were wounded in Chicago just this weekend.
Right.
Nobody made any noise about that. The Chicago Sun-Times put it on page 3. But 47 people were wounded, including a little old lady, I think she was 89 years old. She was at her daughter's funeral, and she was 81 years old. And she was shot at 5 p.m. Friday, minutes after viewing the body of her recently deceased daughter at a Southside funeral home. She was shot 4 times. And her 34-year-old grandson, Sylvester Burress, was also shot in a drive-by attack at the Auburn-Gresham neighborhood. So there were murders all over the place, and attempted murders all over the place in Chicago, but they didn't fit any type of a description that they could use for, radical activism. And they're never going to get any attention over there. They're just going to keep killing each other.
It's a gun-free zone, and it's one of the strictest gun laws cities in the country. And see how it has no effect except it makes more crime, more innocent people die because they can't defend themselves, and criminals don't obey the gun laws.
Yeah, and Baltimore had 36 murders since the Freddie thing, plus hundreds of shootings. But they didn't make the news because they weren't, again, fitting an agenda. Hey, Al Sharpton's daughter tripped and fell in New York. I don't know what kind of shoes she was wearing.
Was that before or after she was climbing mountains and all this other stuff?
Oh, it was before.
I mean, what does she do? Chase, jump in front of buses and then have Dad chase the ambulance down at the end of the day? I mean, what a joke.
She's suing the city of New York for $5 million. She sprained her ankle in November. In April, she decided to sue the city. And then May 16th, she wrote that she was at the top of a mountain in Bali in Indonesia. And she was really tired from having climbed up that whole mountain.
She must have limped up there on one leg.
Yeah, well, no wonder
right?
she was tired if you did it on one leg. So it sounds to me like she's FOS too. She was seen walking in a boot the weeks after the alleged accident. By December, she was showing up in social media images wearing high heels. I saw the heels that she was wearing. I mean, they literally had ballerina toes. That's how high the heels were. So I don't know about her ankle thing, and I think she's pulling a fast one on the city of New York.
Like father, like daughter.
Yeah,
he's
$5
been
million.
shaking down businesses and states and everything else all his life. She might as well get a piece of the action.
Astro says she's tired from chasing the ambulance, I guess. Hey, a school in Moreland, Wyoming, had a surprise drill that scared the stuffing out of the parents and the children. Now, how can they do that? How can they just have a surprise drill? They don't tell the parents. They don't tell anybody.
It's unbelievable.
These kids were scared out of their minds. What would have happened?
What would have happened if the teacher would have had a gun, been a concealed carry, and pulled it out and shot the cop who was dressed up like a thug? Then what would have happened? This is what I mean.
One of those
law
kids.
Enforcement like this, who needs criminals? I mean, those kids could be scarred for life, afraid to go to school, and then if a real person comes in there with a gun, they'll think, oh, it's probably just Officer Bob again.
Mm-hmm. Not only that, but what if one of those kids tried to get out a window and fell and broke its legs or something? This is from EAG.
That's ridiculous. I mean, they should have at least told the teachers and the principal so they could have calmed down the kids when it happened, or something. That's terrorism is what it is.
It is. Those children were terrified. One little 9-year-old doesn't even want to go back to school because he's afraid.
Blame him.
I don't blame it either. But it says Moreland, Wyoming, from EAG News. Police and school officials in Moreland, Wyoming, are taking heat from parents after a spontaneous training exercise left their elementary-age children traumatized. That's kindergarten through 5th grade. What's the oldest one, 10? The idea was to have a school intruder show up on the playground to see if teachers would respond appropriately to usher students away from danger. But that wasn't exactly how it played out, the Casper Star-Tribune reports. A creepy-looking man with a backpack and hooded sweatshirt pulled over his head, leered at children on the playground at Eastside Elementary around 10 a.m. Thursday. And teacher Kevin Heyer approached the man, who then allegedly ran off, according to the news site. Heyer was apparently aware that a random training drill was expected last week and told students, run, to the opposite end of the open field from which the intruder appeared. But students like Aubrey Truman thought Heyer said, he's got a gun, and frantically scrambled to the end of the field, where another teacher gathered students by grade. Truman told the news that she thought that she was going to die and couldn't stop shaking, despite local law enforcement who arrived on scene to tell the students the scary ordeal was a training exercise. 200 students were involved in the surprise drill. They traumatized 200 kids.
Yeah. I wish a teacher would have pulled out a gun and shot him dead. Who would have seen how funny this was?
Yeah. And then we got another story about the cops being called to a school because two little kids got in a sword fight with soft plastic rulers. Two 9-year-olds. Well, a 9 and an 8-year-old. Listen to this. This is from Breitbart. A mother has described how she broke down in tears after discovering the headmistress of her son's school called the police to end a children's playground game. Police spoke to 9-year-old Kyron Bradley, who was playing a game of sword fights with a friend using school rulers. The boy had already been told off 2 days before by the school for playing the same game, and his mother had been called in to speak to staff about his behavior. Natasha Bradley, 27, said her son had cried when he was disciplined for playing games, but was shocked to learn the extreme measures taken. Speaking to special interest publication News Shopper, she said, "I had already dealt with him myself. Why the police were involved, I haven't a clue. I was so disgusted with the way he was being dealt with, I burst out crying. I'm quite a strict parent. I'm not saying my child's an angel, but he has never been in trouble for anything more than being a bit chatty." So that mother made a formal complaint. But the kids playing sword fights, every kid has picked up a stick, a wooden spoon, anything you can make a sword out of and have sword fights. They're knights in armor, and they're cops and robbers, and they're good guys, bad guys, and cowboys and Indians. Kids have been playing that since time.
You know, when I was
every
in
child
school,
wants to be a superhero warrior.
When I was in the 9th grade, I pulled a switchblade out on a cop or on a teacher, right in her face. And it was just kidding around, you know.
Yeah.
They didn't even take the knife. They didn't expel me, nothing.
No.
Today they'd show up, taser me until I went into convulsions, and then put me in juvie until I was 20.
Unless, of course, you were a favored group. If your skin was a different color, listen to this. There's now a ban on suspending black students. Weasel Zip has put this out. Too many black students being suspended leads Oakland schools to ban suspensions and expulsions. Weasel Zipper says, what do you suppose will happen when you remove all discipline on those who already are discipline problems? Oh, this will end well. By way of Truth Revolt, it says, board members of the California Oakland Unified School District unanimously voted on Wednesday to cease suspending students for what they call willful defiance. Those behaviors can include swearing, yelling at teachers, refusing direct orders, texting, and storming out of class, to name a few. The reason concerns that too many black students are being suspended for willful defiance. One sophomore student, her name is Dan Nicole Williams, told the San Francisco Gate they never take time out if someone is sleeping in class to ask what's wrong. They may be acting that way because they didn't eat the night before. We're getting pushed out of school, she added. They don't care about us. Along with suspensions, the new policy will also include bans on expulsions and transfers of students to other schools for multiple infractions. Okay, well, what if there are two students, a black student and an Asian student, and they're both swearing at the teacher? Does the Asian student get suspended and expelled?
The Asian or the white kid gets booted and fails, and the black kids get to have gang fights and gang wars in the school, smoke crack, smoke dope, do whatever they want, and watch the teachers just start quitting by the, truckloads.
Well, yeah, I saw that, that these kids can swear at the teachers. First of all, I would have never considered swearing at a teacher. We would have got killed first by the teacher and then by the disciplinary officer and then by your parents when you got home. So I can't fathom that. But being a teacher, how much are you going to put up with? You go to school to teach these kids, and then you're being sworn at, having things thrown at you, having kids storm out of the class, refuse orders, texting and talking in class. So the other kids aren't going to be able to learn either. So what's the sense of even showing up for work? Why would you put yourself through that abuse?
No one's going to learn anything anyway.
And then you have to be a racist because you can suspend the non-black students, but you can't suspend the black students. So that turns you into a racist. There is nothing equal about that. There is no equal justice there. So you either don't suspend anybody.
That's not how it's going to work anymore in this country. Just like, you can't be black and be a racist. I mean, just watch the news. They'll prove that to you every day.
Well, everything about this is racist. If you are making determinations on the basis of the color of someone's skin, that is racist. It doesn't matter if you're black and you don't like whites and Asians, and it doesn't matter if you're white or Asian and you don't like blacks. It's all racist.
It's actually bigotry, but they have redefined the definition of racism, so we'll just go with that.
Yeah, Astro's saying, I think Michelle Obama has set the tone. Did you see what she did at that graduation at Tuskegee? First of all, she made it all about her. Second of all, the woman went to Harvard and Princeton. She is the First Lady of the United States. She takes multi-million-dollar vacations separate from her husband, and even the dog gets his own separate plane. And then she uses words like, folks like me have it tough.
Yeah, who also benefited from affirmative action for being black.
Yeah, well, man, is she miserable. That woman cannot be made happy, no matter what. She walks around in designer gowns and shoes and accessories and, rubies and diamonds. She dines with kings. She stays at the Taj Mahal. Folks like her.
I don't know any liberal. And
she's a victim?
Do you? You know any liberals that are happy? Just look at Susan Sarandon or any of these millionaire celebrities. They're miserable. Cher, I don't think I've ever seen her crack a smile, and it's one of those fake ones when she's going on her 5th farewell tour.
Yeah. I don't know. They are miserable. Look at even Michael Moore. He is so miserable.
Oh, yeah.
And they're all liars. Every one of them's a liar. Yeah. They're all living large. They're all, living in multi-million-dollar mansions and oceanfront property and mega jets, and they're just all over the world. They have money just to burn. And you'd think that would make them happy, and they're not. They even will sit there and tell you how broke they are and how bad capitalism is while they're counting their hundreds in front of you. It used to be that being a hypocrite
and a liar was a bad thing. Now it's the norm. It's the cool thing. I guess,
Yep. Now, in Baltimore and Ferguson, we all know, and we have gone over it many, many times on the show and on all our social media pages, who is behind these activists and the riots and all of that. We know that George Soros spent $33 million on the riots in Ferguson. We know that all the Acorn groups were there. Answer was there, Revolutionary Communist, Communist Party USA, Answer, all of them were there. There was this group called MORE, M-O-R-E. And they were using the hashtag Black Lives Matter, and they were collecting money, and people all over the social medias gave them all kinds of money. Well, as it turns out, MORE is one of the Soros groups, one of those little offshoots. And it's by white people, white liberals, white liberal activists. Well, they decided that they were not going to pay the black people who they had hired to go out and start the riots. Well, the black activists showed up at their door and said, we're just going to F you up. Black Ferguson activists threatened white liberals for protest pay. This is from Gateway Pundit.
Great.
Oh, it would have been fantastic. They had to sit in and everything. They wouldn't leave the offices. And the cops obviously were not called. But I'm sure the cops would have hurried right over there anyhow.
Yeah.
But listen to this. It's hashtag cut the check. That's the hashtag for black activists demanding payment from white liberals for taking part in the months-long protests in Ferguson over the police shooting death of an unarmed black teenage criminal, Michael Brown, in a confrontation with white Ferguson police officer Darrell Wilson last August. Black activists held a sit-in at the office of MORE, Missourians Organizing for Reform and Empowerment, on Thursday to press their claim that the groups, led by whites, have collected tens of thousands of dollars in donations off the Black Lives Matter movement without paying the black participants their fair share. During the sit-in, One of the black activists threatened the white representative for Moore, saying, we're gonna F you up. In November, the Gateway Pundit reported Moore set up a wedding registry on Amazon seeking donations to fund the Ferguson protests. Here's an excerpt from the appeal. Jail support is administered by Moore, Missourians Organizing for Reform and Empowerment. It's a nonprofit working on a variety of social justice-related issues in the St. Louis area and throughout Missouri. You can make secure donations directly to the Jail Support Fund here, and it gives you the address. It says, any way you choose to support us will make a major difference to the people on the ground who are risking their freedom and safety by exercising their constitutionally protected rights to assemble and free speech. Thank you. Well, as it turns out, the white liberals decided to keep the money. And it says much of the money didn't reach the protesters. So a statement was posted to Twitter on Friday by one of the black groups that took part in the sit-in. It's MAU, also known as Millennial AU. And it describes itself on its Twitter account as an activist collective for youth organization created by young queer black women, education, grassroots power, and leadership. So many of those individuals and other members of other organizations, they all landed on Moore's doorstep and they wanted their money. So how many times have we seen this? You got these white liberals, lily white liberals, living in their ivory towers, like Bill Ayers and Lisa Fethian and good old Sally Cohn and, of course, George Soros and his ilk, all the acorns. They're all collecting all kinds of money. They get these people to do their biddings for them. If they pay them at all, it would only be minimum wage. And who gets the money? The organizations, right? Well, like we said, George Soros put out $33 million. Well, what a return he's going to get on his money. I got another story to tell you, folks. The DOJ announced a plan to pay community organizers $163 million to build trust. Jim Hoft over at Gateway Pundit posted this. The Obama administration announced plans today to build trust between police and communities they serve. This comes after the riots in Ferguson, Missouri, where Michael Brown was shot after attacking a police officer and grabbing for his gun. Part of the announced plan today includes hiring positions, that's community organizers, to focus on building community trust. The DOJ is setting aside $163 million for this operation. It's like Acorn on steroids. So he is going to pay them now. And these community organizing groups, $163 million, so that means Soros gets paid back plus a bonus, right? Because he's actually funding these groups. So when the money comes down, it goes right into George Soros' hands, and he'll divvy it up how he sees fit, or he'll keep it, whatever. And how are they going to build trust? By giving out $163 million for community activism. What they're doing is they're training more community activism. And they're paying back Soros for the ones he already paid for up front. Now, the Obama administration came out with improved police community relations thing. He's got 6 things that he wants us to see, that he's going to improve the relationship between the community and the police. Number 1 is confidence blueprint. After months of study by the President's Task Force on 21st Century Policing Administration, today released its final blueprint for building trust between officers and the communities they serve. I can tell you there's widespread understanding by the police that police-community relations must be improved, especially in communities of color. Ron Davis, a former police chief who now heads the Justice Department's COPS office, told reporters. They call this office COPS, but it's not good for the cops. It says, we are without a doubt sitting at a defining moment in the American policing, Davis said. We have a unique opportunity to redefine policing in our democracy to ensure that public safety is more than just the absence of crime, that it must also include the presence of justice. So he goes on, data is number 2. Statisticians get ready. The White House has also launched a police data initiative designed to increase transparency and identify problematic trends. What he's doing is he's collecting all kinds of information from every police department in his effort to nationalize the police. The $163 million we just went over, that was in hiring grants for positions focused on building community trust. That's for the community organizers. Number 4 is a virtual body cam toolkit. In the wake of the Ferguson protest last year, Obama pledged $75 million to buy 50,000 body cameras. Today, the Justice Department is launching a web-based toolkit laying out best practices for hardware, software, and data storage, as well as dealing with public information requests, civilian privacy issues, and officers' rights issues. Okay, so these are not just body cameras. Now they got hardware, software, data storage. I wonder who's got the contracts on all of that.
You know, that's a good idea, though, for both sides. But the cops will just shut it off, and they'll say, "Oh, there was a malfunction. It wasn't running, during that time, and that guy got his face caved in." But if it was mandatory and they had to do it, then there'd be no dispute what happened. You'd have it on film, and you'd be able to tell if somebody was a threat. If they would have had body cameras, that Michael Brown crap would have never happened. They would have showed that there was no hands up, don't shoot.
True.
They would have showed the guy charging the guy's, weapon or whatever.
That's true, too. But the first time that somebody is caught on one of those cameras doing the wrong thing, they're going to say, well, you didn't have my permission to film me. And in some states, you have to have somebody's permission to record them. So how's that going to sit? They're going to have to change those laws, too. Or those cameras will be useless, right?
Don't forget about Chicago. You're supposed to be able to film a city employee wherever he is. I mean, you can go ahead and film a garbage man if you want to, or a custodian of a school, or anybody else that works for the city. But, boy, somebody was filming a cop one day. He was looking at 20 years in the federal penitentiary because they word it different. They call it wiretapping. Charge him with the wiretapping law for just filming the police. You know what? When the police and the public are involved, it should be across the board. Everybody's allowed to film everybody.
I agree with that. I agree that in the public you should be allowed to film.
What was it? The very first time was Rodney King, and that sort of thing happened all the time. Finally, and maybe he deserved it. I heard he did. The story, it looked like he deserved it. But the fact was that somebody finally got it on film. It was excessive. They just kept pounding him until he had brain damage. And right then, it should have said, hey, look, we need to protect the cops. We need to protect the civilians. Put a camera on everybody.
You're right. I think the cameras would help everybody. I don't see where they're going to be widespread anytime soon, though. Number 5 has got me a little concerned here. It says bayonets be gone, and it's not because of that. Let me read this to you, and then I'll tell you why it's got me concerned. It says, to curb the militarization of local police that upset so many people during the Ferguson protests, Obama has authorized a series of recommendations to regulate the transfer of equipment from federal agencies to state and local law enforcement. The plan divides equipment into 2 main categories: prohibited equipment, including bayonets, grenade launchers, weaponized aircraft, tracked armored vehicles, and large-caliber weapons that have been deemed inappropriate for local law enforcement and should not be made available to local police under any circumstances. And 2, controlled equipment, including riot gear, explosives, armored vehicles, and specialized firearms that police departments can acquire only if they comply with certain vigorous controls. Okay, that's where we should get concerned, vigorous controls. There's your nationalizing of the police forces. Also, they started giving the police all of these military equipment for a while now.
A long while.
Now they're saying, well, we're not going to give them the equipment anymore. So
they got it all.
Well, no. They got some. They got some. Yeah, they got some. They got some MRAPs.
There are towns, 2,000 people, 2,000 population towns with Humvees and tanks. I mean, they're going to give them all these things, militarize them for the last 10 years, train them through the DHS and retired military going to train them. And then all of a sudden, and then he's pushing to federalize the police, and then all of a sudden he's going to come and say, okay, we're going to take away all their military equipment.
Yep.
Let's not forget, the guy's a liar, okay? And whenever he says anything good, it's always the opposite of what he says, unless it sucks, and then you can pretty much bank on it.
Well, if it comes down to Jade Helm type thing, the military has all that equipment. And nationalizing the police forces may not go well. So if you take away their equipment, they're not going to be able to fight with the military, will they?
Well, maybe if somebody
you arm
something,
them, then you disarm them.
Right. You give somebody something, you take it away, and then you say, if you'd like all those really neat toys back, just sign here about being federalized, and they're yours.
Right.
It's like re-bribing
controls. And the last one on this is number 6. It's a fact-finding tour for Loretta Lynch. It says National Community Policing Tour. Newly confirmed Attorney General Loretta Lynch is slated to travel to Cincinnati as part of a national community policing tour. Lynch's aides have indicated that one of her first priorities will be improving police morale and finding common ground between officers and minority communities. So now she's going to go and smooth it all over for everybody. None of it makes sense. Except the body cameras. That did make sense. Everything else doesn't make sense. It's just more ways to spend more money. And like you said, you give somebody something and then you take it away from them and then you make them dance if they want it back. So there's your vigorous controls. Now, to the Jade Helm thing. All right, we're going to get into that a little bit more, but there's one thing I want to say about it. Is Jade Helm is telling us that this is training for the military to be used overseas. They have to train them here so they'll be real good at their contingencies overseas. Well, why are they training with the local police forces when the local police forces are not going overseas? So is that to show off? Is that to show them? Is it to train them? Is it to show them that they're outnumbered, outgunned, and they are secondary to the military? Are they training domestic standing army of police? That would fall in with the national police force, wouldn't it? Then you would have a standing domestic army operating on U.S. soil, trained and equipped equally as the army, just like Obama said he was.
Yeah, he always,
and if they don't do it, they don't get all the little prizes and toys.
Right. He always makes good on the rotten promises. You notice that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But, we're still waiting for those shovel-ready jobs, aren't you?
Yeah.
I see one of those.
Shovel-ready, yeah, there's undertakers. That's the only one that has a shovel-ready job.
Right, and, they're training at night as well. Right when, you go and you raid people's towns and take them off to a FEMA camp. You always do that between midnight and 5 a.m. And that's when they just happen to be training. I mean, everything about this smells. But they wanted that out because they leaked that information out on purpose to see how the public would react.
Yep.
And, so far, only Greg Abbott has shown any backbone through the whole thing.
Yeah. And Louis Gohmert. We're going to get to him in a minute, too. One more police thing, and then we'll move on here. National Park Police had a settlement that they paid. And it was for the way that protesters are arrested. Now they're not going to surround them with police. Listen to this story from the Blaze and the Associated Press. A proposed $2.2 million settlement of a case that started with the arrest of hundreds of protesters in 2002 would change the way U.S. Park Police handle mass protests. Thousands of protesters gathered at the National Mall in Washington, calling on Obama to reject the Keystone XL oil pipeline from Canada, as well as act to limit carbon pollution from power plants and move beyond coal and natural gas. That was Sunday, February 17, 2013. Thousands of protesters gathered at the National Mall. The Partnership for Civil Justice Fund, which is representing several plaintiffs in the case, announced Monday that U.S. District Judge Emmett Sullivan issued a preliminary approval for the settlement of the 12-year-old class action suit last week. The partnership calls the proposal a victory for First Amendment rights and suggests that changes be adopted more widely. Although many media pundits and politicians have suggested that the social justice movement and the free speech and assembly rights of protesters have to be constricted for the sake of security and order, This settlement disproves that myth. Partners Executive Director Mara Vaishan-Hilliard said in a statement, "There's simply no basis by which any other jurisdiction's police department can legitimately claim it cannot enact these procedural standards that conform to fundamental constitutional requirements." U.S. Park Police referred questions to the U.S. Attorney's Office, but it says the suit stems from about 400 arrests during the International Monetary Fund and World Bank meetings in 2002. Most claims arose from the arrests in which demonstrators were corralled in Pershing Park near the White House, and in many cases tied from wrist to ankle. A previous $8.25 million settlement with D.C. police declared all arrests in the case null and void. Under the proposed settlement, the FBI would work to fully expunge those arrests across criminal justice databases. The settlement outlines changes to policies for the U.S. Park Police, who are responsible for areas in front of the White House and other key security sites. U.S. Park Police, a National Park Service unit, have jurisdiction in all federal parks and offices in the Washington, D.C., New York City, and San Francisco metropolitan areas. The changes include prohibiting encircling protesters with police lines, except where they have probable cause to believe that a significant number in the group have committed unlawful acts. In that situation, police must be able to identify those people and must have decided to arrest them. Also, the area must need to be closed to maintain order and public safety while arrests are made. The changes also require particularized probable cause for any protest arrest and give fair notice before Park Police carry out a mass arrest or help another agency seeking to make mass arrests. It goes on, it says assembled groups would get at least 3 warnings to disperse before lawful arrests. The warnings would be at least 2 minutes apart, would be audible throughout the crowd, and would identify exit routes. If Park Police are assisting another agency, they would work with that group to ensure warnings are given and exit routes are announced. Now, I'm not a big fan of the protesters in this case. However, I am a big fan of protesting. And I think that this could work to our benefit if we use it right. You remember when they put those metal barriers up around the national parks during the sequestration? Those will no longer be legal. Your free speech zones will no longer be legal. They can't just put you in a free speech zone, and they can't surround you. So if you are planning on protesting, especially like conservatives protesting, hint, 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 this could benefit you. So that's why I brought it up, not because I'm in love with any of these protesters, but because I'm thinking down the road how it's going to benefit us. And how do you do? There you go.
Yeah, there shouldn't even be such a thing as no speech zones or a constitution-free zone 100 miles around the United States.
Yeah, well, also the Bundy Ranch, remember that? That was BLM, but that was supposedly national area, right? National park. And about that guy, remember he was in the national park and they shot him? The homeless guy there out in California?
Yep.
Well, they can't do that anymore either. So that's, the national parks belong to the public. And you have every right to assemble, redress your grievances. You have a right to protest peacefully. They can't surround you, but if you saw all the Ferguson stuff, those people were surrounded. We were telling everybody. Oh, and the Occupy kids, remember they were surrounded in Zuccotti Park too. They were corralled in there. So there's going to be some changes there. Also, Obama wants the cops to wear less intimidating uniforms. Go ahead, Scott. What's less intimidating?
Well, maybe he's going to dress them up in Hello Kitty SWAT gear and paint tanks and Humvees pink.
Yeah, I knew you were going to say that. You'd come up with something good. Absolutely. How are you going to have softer police uniforms? What are you going to do? You're going to make them wear tutus or something?
Right, why not? Why not? And mascara and stuff so they don't look so scary.
You put them all in a purple Acorn T-shirt? And no more riot gear.
How about giving them Nerf guns so they don't come over and shoot my dog?
Yeah, well, no more riot gear either unless absolutely necessary. And as soon as you can shed the riot gear, you have to.
You know, too many of these government agencies have SWAT teams. Social Security office is a SWAT team. What are they going to do? Raid a nursing home?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, what's up with that?
The USDA.
It hasn't gotten that much dangerous in this country to warrant all these SWAT teams.
Yeah, the USDA has a SWAT team, too. What are we going to have, chickens uprising?
Right. And you
I don't know.
You saw what they use them for. They use them to shake down places like Gibson Guitars because they gave a few $100s to the Romney campaign.
Yeah. Yeah,
Man,
that was
ridiculous.
the EPA. The EPA came in and said they were using the wrong wood. They've been using that rosewood since Gibson began and never had a problem. Yeah. And then they ended up having to give it back anyhow.
Yeah, but look at the expense it cost them on lawyers, getting out of jail. You know, putting them through the system. That's the punishment. You might, you might get off free after a while, but not until your life has been turned upside down. They put you through living hell. You probably lost hundreds of $1,000s in sales and business and lost time off work.
Yeah, the same with the gun dealers and stuff. The same exact thing happened to them. As a matter of fact, one of the guys got his $100,000 back recently because there was so much pressure put on the administration to get him back his $100,000. They never even charged him with anything. They just took his money, said that it was suspicious activity, and never charged him with anything. His bank wouldn't take him. He lost his bank accounts. They tortured that poor guy. And it cost him more than the $100,000 just for the lawyers and the legal fees and stuff. So he still come out the loser. All right, let's take a break, and then we got a whole bunch more stuff that we're going to bring up. We got some ISIS stuff coming up. We got some immigration stuff. This immigration thing you're going to love. And we'll be right back. How's that? I want to talk about immigration for a second. Now, a while back, we had told you that a judge was going to make an immigration ruling. It was a Monday, and we told you that our D.C. insider had told us that the administration had given all the people working on immigration and loading those computers, made them go home early on Friday, took their work home with them, and they had to spend the entire weekend loading as many immigrants as they could into that computer as fast as they could, because once the ruling came down, they didn't know how it was going to go. So they wanted as many into that computer system as they could possibly get into there, because that would give these immigrants pending status. Well, as it turns out, some of them went over and continued to load the computer. It says only 2,000 here, but they might have put, 200,000 in over the weekend to give them pending status. Anyhow, they got busted for the 2,000. That after the ruling that Judge Hannon made, the injunction, they still continued to load these immigrant names and stuff and information into the computers, which was a violation of the injunction. Well, Obama's administration went to court and said, well, it was computer issues, and they were really sorry for breaking the amnesty injunction. We know damn well that that is a lie. We know that they continued to put people into the computers. And first they said, well, it was an accident, and we didn't really know, and now it's a computer mistake. It's all a bunch of hooey. But the Obama administration, this is from Breitbart, the Obama administration says it violated a federal judge's injunction blocking Obama's executive amnesty program from taking effect due to computer problems. Earlier this month, the Obama administration admitted it issued 2,000 three-year expanded deferred action for childhood arrivals. That's another thing. Was the work permits, the deferred action, was supposed to be for 2 years, but since they knew that this injunction was coming down, or the possibility of the injunction was coming down, they extended it to 3 years. So all those people that they were loading into the computer, they got a 3-year deferred action. Anyhow, Jamie Dupree reported that in the court filings issued late Friday, administration lawyers argued that after the injunction, United States Citizenship and Immigration Services moved to ensure that the agency ceased its preparation to implement executive amnesty. Despite the steps, thank you guys for sticking with this. All right. Scott informed me that you guys haven't been able to hear me, and he's been playing music. I'm really sorry about that. We're having technical difficulties here, but I think we're good now. All right. Obama says that ISIS is the junior varsity team. Well, if they're such a junior varsity team, how come the New York Police Department now wants 450 cops to work solely on ISIS-related threats? And then in Ramadi, now, whether or not you decide that we should have gone or I shouldn't have gone into Iraq, the fact is that we went into Iraq. And it was a success story, actually, before Obama decided to pull us out. Now, they told us that ISIS was the junior varsity team, nothing to worry about. The Iraqi forces, they're all trained. Well, 6,000 of the Iraqi forces were attacked by 150 ISIS. The 6,000 Iraqi forces dropped their weapons and abandoned and just left Ramadi. They left all that equipment. As a matter of fact, there was 50 tons of weapons that were left behind that ISIS is now in possession of, on top of what they've got in Mosul and what they got in Yemen. Remember, Yemen was a success story, too. So if ISIS isn't such a big deal, why are they marching right through the Middle East? Now, we supposedly have some deal with Iran, and Iran is supposed to be helping us fight them in Iraq, but that doesn't seem to be going well. And now I hear, like, Grassley, he says that he's going to run for president, but also he says he wants to put 10,000 troops into Iraq to train the Iraqis. Didn't we just do that? Didn't they just drop all their weapons? Why would we train them? Why would we give them more weapons?
Well, that's not going to happen,
Well, Obama says that he's not going to stop sending them weapons.
I mean, you had John McCain basically go down there and, on Obama's orders, create ISIS from Al-Qaeda. Then they thought that they could get them some weapons through Libya, and that kind of went south thanks to Hillary Clinton. And then they tried to get them through Syria in a different way, and that didn't really work out. So they decided they were going to use Iraq as a way to resupply them. So they told the Americans to leave all their equipment, brand new equipment, whatever wasn't used, behind in perfect running condition, so ISIS can come in and now take it over and be resupplied and not have to go through Libya or Syria.
Absolutely.
Worked out pretty well so far, hasn't it?
Absolutely, it has. You're absolutely right. That's all that's coming out right now. The Judicial Watch just brought in the Benghazi documents, and they said the same thing that we had said right along from 2 days after the event. We told them who was involved. We told them that we were looking for the man pads. We told them about the ship that was all packed full of arms in Libya at that port and was headed to Syria. Now, no one wanted to believe us, of course. We told them about the Turk who Stevens had met with before the attack. Now, Turkey was the one that was running the weapons, remember?
Yeah.
And it had to be a state sponsor, because how else were you going to get a ship into those ports up there in Syria? And what about Assad? Was he for that? Was he against that? Well, what's the deal with that? Well, it says here, this is from Judicial Watch, it says, the Defense and the State Department documents reveal that Obama administration knew that al-Qaeda terrorists had planned the Benghazi attack 10 days in advance. We knew that, too. We told them that they were planning an attack. They were going to kill as many Americans as possible. We told them that the CIA, what was that called, post, CIA post, they were told to stand down, but the guys went anyhow to try to help Stevens and Smith and the other guys. Well, that didn't, nobody wanted to believe us on that stuff, and we knew damn well that was what was going on. We knew they were tracking the weapons. We knew that they only wanted the man pads. Now, they all denied shipping weapons to Syria. Maybe they didn't ship them. Maybe they were just watching them be collected and shipped out. Maybe they had a deal with Turkey. The only thing that the Americans were concerned with were those man pads. Everything else they didn't give a damn about. The missiles, the grenade launchers, the flamethrowers, the rifles and all that stuff. The weapons shipped to Syria in late August were sniper rifles, RPGs, 125 millimeter and 150 millimeter howitzer missiles. The numbers for each weapon were estimated to be 500 sniper rifles, 100 RPG launches with 300 total rounds, and approximately 400 howitzer missiles. That's 200 each of the 125 millimeter and the 200 of the 155 millimeter. The heavily redacted document does not disclose who was shipping the weapons, though. So, but our listeners already knew all about that. And they knew that attack was planned and not spontaneous. They knew the rise of ISIS was a threat. It says here, number one, the U.S. had full knowledge of gun running from Benghazi to Syria before the attack. Number two, the Obama government knew shortly after the fact that the attack was planned at least 10 days in advance, deliberately to coincide with 9/11, and was in retaliation for a drone strike that killed an al-Qaeda strategist. Number three, the rise of ISIS and the establishment of the caliphate was predicted by U.S. intelligence in 2012. So the three facts are key because they reveal that the Obama administration lied and deliberately attempted to spin the facts concerning the Benghazi attack, during which 4 Americans were murdered. Also, they stood over those coffins and lied about a video. The documents are now out. So who pays for that? At that transfer ceremony when they had that imam cast their souls to hell. Who pays for that? Who pays for the lie? How about that Nicola in jail for a video that was never a factor? And back then, Morsi was the president in Egypt. And some of those people said that Morsi had sent them. So no wonder they're all upset that Morsi just got the death penalty. It's not that it's going to be carried out. That has to go in front of a Sharia judge before they actually do it. But Astro wants to know how many people perjured themselves in front of Congress and how many will get away with murder. Hicks didn't
what
lie.
About Hillary? I mean, she was running commercials over there, blaming this poor guy for exercising his freedom of speech.
That was treason. That was giving aid and comfort to the enemy.
When those bodies came back, she looked at those parents right in the eye and said, "That dirty rat making that video, he's to blame for this."
Yeah.
Talk about cold. I mean, that woman is ice cold.
Yeah, she is. She looked right at that Sean Smith's mother and said, "We're going to get the guys. We're going to get that filmmaker.
Yeah. Yep.
And we're going to put him behind bars." And they did. They got the filmmaker and they put him behind bars, even though he had nothing to do with this.
And she used like $300,000 of taxpayers' money to run commercials condemning that terrible filmmaker. She knows
that's the part.
Do lie.
Scott, that's the part that I think is treason because they spent money to make an apology video, apologizing to the attackers for a video that had nothing to do with it, when it was them that killed the Al-Qaeda operative. And that was what the retaliation was for, not for some video. And then Hillary sits there and says, "What difference does it make?" And then during the debate, when they knew damn well, long in advance that this was an attack, that it was planned, that it was going to be 9/11, that it was going to be kill as many Americans as they could. First of all, they did not up the security. Second of all, like Astro says, and what about Candy Crowley? Aiding and abetting the lie during the debate when Romney challenged Obama's lie. Get the transcript, Crowley. How did Obama know that she even had the transcript? And he was talking about...
It was all rehearsed beforehand. It's just all rehearsed beforehand, And then Romney just caved. I mean, he could have called him on it right then.
Yeah, but I don't think Romney had all the facts then either, but he knew he was being blindsided right there. And that's another thing, too, I want to ask about. This George Stephanopoulos baloney that's going on right now. he's saying, well, I'm going to recuse myself from moderating the debate. He was never going to moderate the debates this time. So what's he recusing himself from? That's a hoax, too.
He shouldn't even be on ABC News. I mean, he was chief of staff for Hillary or Bill Clinton.
Not only that, but he was working as a panelist for the Clinton Foundation, and he gave them $75,000, $25,000 a year for the last 3 years, and he was sitting on panels.
He belongs in the Brian Williams Club. That's what he belongs.
Yeah, but then you find out that a whole bunch of these media people are donating to and actively working with the Clinton Foundation. Now, they're saying, well, you know, they do good things with AIDS and with poverty and all that. No, they don't. Only 10% of the billions of dollars that go in and out of that foundation go to any type of charity work. Where's the other 90% going? They got money up the wazoo. Look at it. Look at Haiti. They put the Clinton Foundation in charge of all those donations, including the telephones that everybody was texting number 10 to donate to the Haiti Relief Foundation. The Haitians never saw any of that money. Not a nickel of it hit Haiti.
Yeah, $75 million disappeared right when she got into that position.
Yeah,
wasn't it?
The Haitian people, they didn't benefit anything from that. As a matter of fact, they got screwed out of their mine. Her brother got that mine.
Yep.
So what the hell?
You know, nobody's held accountable for anything, so it's a license to do whatever you want. That's why this administration can disobey judges' orders and all that other stuff. I mean, Henry Kissinger said it, you know. Illegal, we do right away, and unconstitutional takes a little longer. Well, we're at that stage where they just, you know, they don't follow any Constitution, Bill of Rights. It's all just a myth that some of us still believe in, you know, because it gave us a little bit of protection against the government. But you know, none of them go by it, and none of them are penalized for violating their oath of office or violating the Constitution. So why should they follow it? There's no downside to not following it.
Yeah, well, even just making that...
You know, laws only matter if you get arrested for them or punished for them if you violate them. I mean, if, you know, people went and robbed banks and the cops didn't come and throw you in jail, I bet you'd be robbing banks every day now, wouldn't you?
True.
Well, these top politicians, they have nobody that's going to arrest them. They have nobody that's going to punish them. And so it's a license to do whatever you want. Yeah.
You're right. And then there's the Hillary email scandal. That keeps coming up. Now she was using HROD 17, and she was doing business under that with that email on her from the ClintonEmail.com. So that was on her private server. It was another account, not HRC 17. Now it's HROD 17. So how many other IDs does she have on that? And here's one. On April 8th, 2011, Clinton messaged Jake Sullivan using the account HROD17 at ClintonEmail.com. Selected Libya-related message from Hillary Clinton's personal email account. Another one on January 5th, 2012, selected Libya-related. All of these are Libya-related, so she must have this account set up just for her Libya stuff so she could delete that. And then you have Sidney Blumenthal. Sidney Blumenthal was giving her information, and he was running information to all these different countries that the Clinton Foundation was doing business with. And that's why they didn't pay attention to our generals and our admirals. And, you know, they weren't reading their State Department briefings because they did not need them. They had their own little information gathering system going on. And here's this woman who now wants to be president, who is a bigger crook than Gotti, and a better liar than him, too. Capone didn't have the chutzpah this woman has.
Well, and everybody who covers up and lies for him gets promotions, so why not? I mean,
True.
They parade Susan Rice on, 5 different Sunday morning television shows to regurgitate the same lie over and over and over, comes out that she lied about the whole thing. I mean, you could tell because she's such a terrible liar. And what does she get? Well, she gets to be, what, ambassador to the UN or something? Well,
no, that's Samantha Powers. No, she's the head of national security now. She gets she gets promotion. So it goes to show you that, you cover up for this administration, you toe the line no matter how ludicrous it is or sounds, and you get a promotion. And if you are someone like Menendez, where you might say something against it, like the Iran deal, well, you're indicted 2 weeks later. Yeah, no kidding. It's just, I'm flabbergasted. She can get away with not putting the emails in the National Archive. This woman was the Secretary of State. Every single email belongs to the people. It should have been done on our National Archive. So now, throughout history, when your children and your grandchildren go to school and they're looking for her emails, you're not going to find them because they don't exist. It's like she's a phantom. They're running a shadow government through the Clinton Foundation. They're doing business with multiple countries through the Clinton Foundation.
You want to know a sad statistics I heard about the other day, and this sort of explains it all. The attention span of the average adult now is 8 seconds. That's 1 second less than a goldfish.
Oh, my God.
That's why. Because, this person can whack Gaddafi. She can allow, Stevens to get whacked. She can, burn emails, hand them over to the Russians, whatever. And it's just business as usual a week later.
Yeah, not even a hint of compassion or.
And now she's MIA. I mean, she's nowhere on the campaign trail.
She doesn't have to.
This has really been bothering me lately because here she is avoiding the media like the plague. Okay, you have Jeb Bush coming out, and he sounds just like the biggest left-wing Democrat I've ever heard in my life. Neither one of them act like they want to be president.
Mm-hmm. So
that makes me think maybe they know something we don't. Like possibly there's not going to be another election. I know we've said that before, but, it's looking more and more like there's nobody that really wants to be president.
Yeah.
It's just too weird.
It's really weird. But she doesn't have to. She doesn't have to answer any questions. She's got the media in her pocket. They're all on her payroll or donating to her. They're taking orders from her. So they're going to go out and do her bidding. They're going to argue with all the Republicans. You saw it even with Chris Wallace when he was talking to Marco Rubio. They were asking Marco Rubio a hypothetical question. Knowing what you know now, would you have gone into Iraq? To coin her phrase, at this point, what difference does it make? Unless Chris Wallace can change the past, why don't he ask him about the future?
Well,
Marco Rubio didn't even have a vote in that. Hillary Clinton did vote to go to war.
Then that's what he should have said.
Nobody asked her that.
That's what he should have said then. But you see, he doesn't think well on his feet, so, blah, 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 I don't know what to say.
Yeah. And the other thing with Ted Cruz.
He's so phony, too. It makes me sick, by the way.
Well,
they asked him right out. They asked him right out about NSA spying. Now, the NSA has come out and finally admitted to their spying. There's a huge billion-dollar building in Utah that's nothing for spying. Edward Snowden, ran away and spilled the beans on them that they're all spying. And they asked Rubio, do you know what he says? No, I don't think they're spying on people at all.
They're spying on you so bad that they have no way to use the information. They're just pulling all this information out of everywhere. So they're not even focused on catching anybody. They're just feeding that new internet system. They're feeding that database. They don't give a damn what anybody's talking about. They don't give a damn about catching criminals. They just want all this information in that database to use it down the road, but they're not going to use it now. They're not even listening to it. They're listening, and they're listening for search words and stuff. But there's so much information now that they can't. But then, look at that interview with Ted Cruz. I mean, the guy, what did he want him to do? A salsa dance and roll a cigar with one hand to prove that he was Cuban? I mean, that was the most racist thing I ever heard. And stupid Ted Cruz goes along with it. He should have said, listen, dude.
Yeah. Yeah, they go along with it. Why not just tell the truth? It's so much easier to remember later.
Yeah,
I mean,
well,
nobody's got any backbone. Yeah, I mean,
that's
he
what
would
they're
gain
saying. Well,
so
I was
much
trying
more
to be
points
nice.
if he just quit trying to be nice, quit trying to pander to everybody, quit trying to get the media to like him like McCain did, which didn't work, and just go after him and say, you know what, if you're going to treat me like an idiot, I'm not going to come on your crappy show anymore. You only got about 5 viewers anyway.
Yeah. But, now the media is just going after all the Republicans. She's staying in the shadows. She's not even coming out and talking to anybody. She doesn't have to. She's got Stephanopoulos, and she's got all the MSNBC people, and she's even got half of Fox all sticking up for her. Well, she will have to. She doesn't have any real competition.
She's got nothing to lose by coming out. She comes out, she gets thrown a bunch of softballs like Obama did for the last 2 elections, and she looks good with rehearsed answers. But she's not even doing that.
She's answered a total of 8 questions since she announced her campaign. And at that, they were non-answers.
Yeah, and she's made, 3 gaffes? Said that corporate companies don't make jobs. Companies don't create jobs.
Yeah.
They don't. Who does? Santa Claus?
Yeah, Santa Claus makes them. The government makes them. The government is the answer to everything.
All those shovel-ready jobs that Obama created for the last 7 years? Yeah. Those are great.
Yeah, the government. You know what the government is doing too now? That Education Secretary, Arnie Duncan, he come out and now he wants boarding schools, public boarding schools, because there are some children that we really should have 24/7.
Yeah,
what a horrible thing to say.
Brainwashing early. Sure. Soviet Union.
Some children, some children don't have mothers, fathers, grandparents who care about them. So they're getting into trouble and they're losing their way. So we're going to have to take them and put them in 24/7 boarding schools because we should have those children. Who the hell is we, and what gives you the authority to have any children? You are the government. You are not their daddy. You are not their mama.
Oh, like Melissa Harris said on MSNBC, children don't necessarily belong to their parents anymore. They belong to the state.
I got 2 more short things that I want to bring up before we run out of time here. One is Louis Gohmert and Jade Helm. All right? Louis Gohmert says that the feds are using Jade Helm to provoke a fight with citizens. Congressman Louis Gohmert has called for changes to the Jade Helm military exercise, arguing that the labeling of Texas and Utah as hostile states in an Army document relate to the drill as suspicious, while suggesting that the federal government is trying to provoke a fight with citizens. In a piece published by the Highland County Press, Gohmert, who is vice chair of the Judiciary Subcommittee on Crime, Terrorism, and Homeland Security, suggests that the Utah and Texas may have been labeled negatively because they are red states. Once I observed the map depicting hostile, permissive, and uncertain states and locations, I was rather appalled that the hostile areas amazingly have a Republican majority and believe in the sanctity of the United States Constitution, writes Gohmert. So he's all over this. And now, of course, they're going to make him out to be a kook. And, he's saying that
the honor these days. If you're called a kook, you're the only one telling the truth.
This Jade Helm thing, I saw some photographs of the Walmart in Texas, one of the Walmarts in Texas, and the person had gone there and says, well, if they're doing plumbing, why are they fortifying the rear entrance of the place? Why are they fortifying that? So they're putting more security up around the rear entrance to the Walmart. You don't need that for plumbing.
They don't want the plumbers to escape,
And inside the place, somebody had gotten in. Inside the place was hot dog and hamburger rolls. There was a couple of working refrigerators, and there was a rolling rack of meats going into the refrigerator. So it looked like somebody was getting ready for a big cookout. But that was the only products that were in the store. It was a whole bunch of hamburger buns and some meat. Could have been hamburger steaks or whatever. but that's all you could see in the store. Everything else was gone. So it looks like they were getting ready to have a cookout in there. All right, and the second thing I want to update you on is the Trans-Pacific Partnership. This is really bad, folks. This is so bad. But Republicans are claiming enough votes to pass the fast-track trade bill. Reuters says top Republicans predicted on Sunday that both chambers of Congress would muster the votes to pass the fast-track authority sought by Obama to negotiate major trade deals, despite opposition from Obama's fellow Democrats. Yes, we'll pass it. We'll pass it later this week, Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell said in an interview with ABC. Republican U.S. Representative Paul Ryan said on CNN's State of the Union that he was confident the measure would also pass the House of Representatives. We will have the vote, said Ryan. So now it's the Republicans. The Democrats don't want this. The Republicans do. However, there was a man who put out a video. It's just a small just 5 minutes. I'm not going to play it the whole 5 minutes, though. But he's telling you about the financial collapse, which should be coming up around the weeks of June to September, and that the dollar is going to crash. But I'm thinking maybe that is a reason for Jade Helm. And maybe it's a reason for this Trans-Pacific Partnership, because if they don't get on this, China is going to get all over it. It says, do the United States want other countries to adhere to American standards, Ryan asked, versus China trying to write the rules which degrades the standard of the trade? So why is it either or? Who's in this hurry? Why is it, do we want American standards or Chinese standards? How come we have to make that decision right now if we're not expecting a dollar collapse?
Yeah, we no longer have votes anywhere. We're not going to have a vote at the UN, not going to have any vote at the IMF, nothing, because America's going into a third world crap hole status real soon. All the manufacturing jobs are gone. Most of the other jobs are outsourced. They don't need us anymore.
Yeah. So if they don't
happens?
get this trade deal going, what's going to happen with China? Is China going to get a trade deal going? Is that China going to run the world? Why is this rush on this Trans-Pacific Partnership?
They're going to run the world regardless, but this is just a fast track into it.
Yeah, well, fast track gets me very concerned. The way that they have it set up, they got it in a room. You can only read one piece of that at a time. You have to read one page, give that page back before the clerk will give you a second page. Only politicians can go in there. They can't bring their staff. They can't bring any recording equipment. They can bring a pencil and some paper, but any notes they take are confiscated before they leave that room. Why is it such a classified situation? What is going on that they need that tight of security that they cannot just present that to the American people? If this is such a wonderful deal, shouldn't the American people get behind it and say, yeah, that's a really good deal? We're not idiots. We can read it. If these politicians who don't have half the smarts as most of the people we know,
that's why they don't
put
it online. That's why they don't let people read it, because they will see that it's the last-ditch effort to flush the rest of American sovereignty down the toilet.
Oh, absolutely.
And, of course, the Republicans are pushing it now because they're in charge of the House and Senate. Whatever group is in charge, that's who the traitors become, because that global agenda moves forward no matter what. And, of course, this time it was the Democrats' turn, like Elizabeth Warren and Alan Grayson, to come out and pretend like they were against it when they knew it was going to pass, but they can look like the good guy.
Yeah, well, when you got guys like Jamie Dimon come out and say that things are going to crash, and you got Zero Hedge telling us that the market is doing some weird stuff, and you got Carol Ray, our financial guru, she's completely putting out so much stuff, and it all leads to this dollar collapse, and it's, looks like it's going to be late summer, early fall. So maybe that's the rush. The dollar's going to collapse. If we don't have these trade deals, and we owe China so much money, and we owe ourselves so much money, who's going to do business with us?
No one.
Something is going on.
And you know what? If we were invaded, no one would come to our aid either, because this guy has alienated all our allies, and he's buddied up to all our enemies. So nobody cares what happens to America.
Right.
And I really can't blame him. I really can't.
No, I can't blame them either. But isn't that what an abusive spouse does? I saw that Astro had mentioned that earlier. But that's exactly what an abusive person does. First, they alienate you from your friends and family. Then they beat the snot out of you.
Yeah.
Well, that's what's going on. They've alienated us from our allies. Israel, Great Britain, France. Even the Saudis don't like us anymore. They didn't even go to his party at Camp David. Do you know what he did at Camp David? He brought, I mean, I know it wasn't the king, but the king sent a couple of princes there. And they had to stay at this little soiree. He left them there to their own device and went back to D.C. every night. He invited them to his house for this summit and then left them there. Same thing he did to Bibi. He went and had dinner and left Bibi sitting in the living room. Well, that's what he did to these guys, too. Only 2 people showed up.
Nice guy.
And a couple of princes. So,
well, I hope they urinated on his carpet.
That's our carpet, though.
No, it isn't. You ever been there? I've never been there. You gonna get a sleep over there? It's not all right.
No.
Nothing.
No, even if you do get invited there, you still don't get to meet you get to meet the guest of honor. But then he tells you, okay, I'll see you later. I'm leaving. Hey, we're running out of time here. We gotta say goodnight. I'm looking at the clock.
All right. Well, good night. Sorry about that 15-minute music break.
Yeah, sorry about that, folks. I didn't mean for that to happen. All right, good night, Scott. Thank you.
All right.
All right, everybody, that's all the time we have for today, and we hope you enjoyed our show. To everybody who's listening, called in, or who's in our chat rooms, thank you very much for sticking around. Special thank you to my wonderful colleagues, Lynn, Anna, and AstroTurf. I love you guys. And as always, a special thank you to my great co-host, Scott. Stay tuned to PRN all week at 8 p.m. Eastern Time for our great lineup of fantastic...